Hey, before I begin part 5 in this series, please like and follow on YouTube Super Teacher Guy for my other fraction videos. Next up will be a series of fraction videos about multiplication and division of fractions, and we're going to continue to add themes. But if you have a particular need, please reach out to me in the comments and let me know what else you need help with. I also have videos on TikTok and Instagram covering a variety of math topics. So, welcome to Fraction Sense Part 5, where we talk a lot more about subtraction. And when we're subtracting, we really want to make sure we have the same size piece or the same denominator. So there are a couple of ways to figure that out, and we're going to cover them in this video. Then we're going to figure out and talk about some patterns that we see, and by the time we're done, your child should be able to subtract fractions like this by using fraction tiles or hopefully generating the patterns out of their brain because they can envision them in their head. So we can see here that 1/4 is equivalent to 3/12. And so I wrote it as an equivalent fraction statement. And if each of these fourths is equal to 3/12, then we have three groups of 3. So 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. And then 1/3, well, 1/3 is larger than 1/4. So your child should know that it's got to be at least 3/12, or well, more than 3/12. And so in this example, we can see that 1/3 is equivalent to 4/12. So now we've got 9/12 minus 4/12. And literally, when you talk about subtraction with children, talk about taking away a group of something from the original group. So if we have 9/12 minus 4/12, the obvious answer is you have 5/12 left over. And that is the correct answer. So the general pattern here is multiplication. 4 times 3 is 12. And then when we multiplied times 3, the numerator also grew by 3 times as much. And down here, when thirds grew into 12ths, that was 4 times as much. So the pattern is multiply numerator and denominator by 4. So the question is, does that lead to a general pattern of, if I just multiply denominators, like 4 times 3 is 12, will that always give me a common denominator, and is it the best common denominator to use? Well, the answer is yes and no. It always works, but it isn't always the best option. And here's one example of that. So the question was, does this pattern of multiplying denominators to create new fractions always work? And if we do 4 times 2, we would get 8. And so you can see multiplying, remember, with fractions creates smaller pieces. So these are eighths. And 3/4 is equivalent. You can see here, this is 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is equal to 6/8. And then 1/2 is equal to 4/8. So if we do 6/8 minus 4/8, we would get 2/8, which is the correct answer. However, most of the time you would be asked to simplify the fraction, and so 1/8 is equal to 2/8 is equal to 1/4. So would there have been a more efficient way to figure out a common denominator before we subtracted? Yes, here's that way that always works, and maybe is a better way or a different way to get your kid to think about fraction piece sizes. So as a general rule, if you do the denominator skip count, that's a better way to just check and see if one denominator can skip count to become the other denominator. So if you take 2 and you start to skip count, starting with 2, and then you double it, you go to 4, 6, 8, so on. Well, immediately you can see that 4 is a common denominator. And up here, you can see that 1/2 equals 2/4. And so right here, you also can sort of see that 4 times 2 is 2 times as much as 2. 2 times 2 is 4. All that's related to the fact that if you just take 1/2 and make it into 2/4, that's an equivalent fraction. And then you got 3/4 minus 2/4. Well, if you have 3/4 minus 2/4, there's 1 left over. So this is a more efficient way. All you're doing is skip counting, and you're finding common denominators. And if you can picture why 1/2 and 2/4 are the same, the multiplication kind of becomes secondary to the child. So here we have 1/2 minus 1/6. To review the two ways we talked about finding the common denominator, you could multiply 2 times 6 and get 12, and 12ths works because 1/2 is equal to 6/12. You can see that. And 1/6 is equal to 2/12. You can also see that. So you could do it that way, but the better way would be to figure out that you skip count by the 2, 2, 4, 6, and after skip counting 3 times, or times 3, that gets you a common piece size with 6. So here we have 1/2 is equal to 3/6. And again, you can see that physically, which is super important. So I could convert this into 3/6 minus 1/6, and the answer is 2/6. Now, interestingly, at that point, 2/6, your child could figure out is equivalent to 1/3, because, well, 3 and 6 are related, and 2 of these 6 does equal 1/3. So that's kind of a neat little problem to work on with your child. So I encourage you to continue subtracting fractions with your children, and this is important to understand. The least common denominator is actually the largest common piece size, which becomes very confusing to children when they're trying to think about this word least as actually being a large piece, because least refers to the denominator, and the smaller that number is, the larger the piece size is, right? Because 2 is less than 6, but this is a larger piece size. So that's a big stumbling block for kids. So this sort of concludes my 5-part series on fraction sense. I'm going to do one next on multiplication and division. So if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out on TikTok and Instagram many other videos I have about fractions, ratios, geometry, all kinds of things. Thanks, and have a great day.